Tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Fall. Hunter Allen had always prided himself on reading people. 20 years in construction management, building his company from nothing, had taught him to spot lies, deceit, and weakness from a mile away. But as he watched his 4-year-old son, Charlie, writhing in pain on the emergency room gurney, Hunter realized he'd been blind to the most important deception of all. How did this happen again? Dr. Kevin Houston asked, his experienced hands carefully examining Charlie's twisted arm. He was climbing the oak tree in our backyard, Hunter explained, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his chest. I was inside taking a business call when I heard him scream. The doctor nodded, but Hunter caught something odd in his expression, a flicker of recognition when Sabrina Allen walked through the automatic doors. His wife moved with her usual calculated grace, designer heels clicking against the hospital floor, her expression one of practiced concern. "How is he?" Sabrina asked, her voice carrying just the right amount of maternal worry. But Hunter had spent 15 years married to this woman, and something felt wrong. Her timing was too perfect, her demeanor too controlled. Dr. Houston's reaction was immediate and unsettling. The color drained from his face as his eyes locked onto Sabrina. Without breaking eye contact, he whispered something to the nurse beside him. Hunter caught only fragments. "Get security. It's her." "I'm sorry, what's the problem?" Hunter stepped forward, his protective instincts flaring. Dr. Houston quickly composed himself, but the damage was done. "Nothing, Mr. Allen. Just standard protocol. Let's focus on Charlie." As a medical team worked on his son's fractured arm, Hunter's mind raced. The doctor knew his wife. The question was how, and why that knowledge had triggered such an alarmed response. Sabrina remained by Charlie's bedside, playing the perfect mother, but Hunter noticed details he'd previously overlooked. The way she checked her phone obsessively. How she'd arrived at the hospital 20 minutes after he'd called her, despite claiming she was only 10 minutes away at the grocery store. Most disturbing was her reaction when Charlie had first fallen. That strange laugh she'd made, quickly covered by concern. "Daddy, my arm hurts," Charlie whimpered. "I know, buddy. The doctors are going to fix you up." Hunter squeezed his son's good hand, but his eyes remained on Sabrina. After Charlie was sedated and taken for x-rays, Hunter cornered Dr. Houston in the hallway. "I need to know why you reacted that way to my wife." The doctor hesitated, clearly wrestling with professional ethics and personal conviction. "Mr. Allen, I can't discuss other patients, but be careful. Some people aren't who they seem." "What does that mean?" "Just watch your son closely, and maybe ask yourself how someone falls from a tree that way. That kind of break usually requires significant force or a very specific angle of impact." Hunter's blood ran cold. "Are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything officially. But off the record, I've seen injuries like this before. They don't typically come from simple falls." 3 hours later, Charlie was released with a cast and pain medication. The drive home was silent except for his son's occasional whimpers. Hunter's mind churned with dark possibilities he'd never allowed himself to consider. Back at their sprawling suburban home, Hunter helped Charlie into bed while Sabrina disappeared into her study, claiming she had urgent emails to handle. Through the baby monitor, Hunter heard Charlie mumbling in his medicated haze. "Mommy pushed. The tree was too high. She said Daddy wouldn't know." Hunter's hands clenched into fists. He sat in the darkness of Charlie's room long after his son fell asleep, staring at the innocent face of the child he'd killed to protect. For the first time in their marriage, Hunter allowed himself to truly see his wife not as the woman he'd fallen in love with, but as a stranger whose actions no longer made sense. The pieces were there, the unexplained absences, the phone calls that ended when he entered rooms, the gradual emotional distance. But this was different. If Sabrina had hurt Charlie, if she was capable of harming their child, then everything he thought he knew about his life was a lie. Hunter Allen had built his reputation on being methodical, thorough, and above all, unforgiving to those who crossed him. Construction was a ruthless business, and he'd crushed competitors and dealt with betrayers with cold efficiency. But this was personal. This was his family. As he finally left Charlie's room, Hunter caught sight of Sabrina through her study doorway. She was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones, her back to the door. He moved closer, staying in the shadows. No, it was risky, but he was getting suspicious anyway. The hospital thing was just bad luck? No, Hunter doesn't suspect anything yet. Hunter retreated to his own study, his mind already shifting into the calculating mode that had made him successful. Tomorrow, he would begin investigating the woman he'd shared his bed with for 15 years. And if what he suspected was true, Sabrina Allen would learn why crossing Hunter Allen was the biggest mistake of her life. Chapter 2. The Investigation. Hunter Allen owned a construction empire worth $20 million because he understood the value of information and patience. Over the next 2 weeks, while caring for Charlie and maintaining the facade of normalcy, he quietly dismantled his wife's life piece by piece. His first call was to Luke Hammond, a private investigator who'd helped him with corporate espionage and background checks on potential business partners. Luke was ex-military, discreet, and had zero tolerance for people who hurt children. "I need everything on my wife," Hunter said during their meeting at a construction site downtown. "And I mean everything. Financial records, phone logs, medical history, where she goes when she's not home." Luke studied his old friend's face. "Hunter, are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance is." "She hurt my son." The words came out flat, emotionless, but Luke caught the volcanic rage beneath the surface. "Understood. Give me 72 hours. While Luke worked his magic, Hunter conducted his own investigation. He installed tracking software on Sabrina's phone and car, hidden cameras throughout the house, and began monitoring her activities with the precision of a military operation. The first revelation came within days. Sabrina's grocery shopping trips were visits to a downtown apartment complex. Her spa days were lengthy afternoons at the same location. The expensive work dinners with her marketing firm colleagues were elaborate lies. She quit that job 6 months ago. Hunter sat in his truck outside the apartment building on a Wednesday afternoon, watching his wife enter Unit 4B. Through Luke's preliminary report, he already knew the apartment belonged to Elliot Porter, a 32-year-old personal trainer with a criminal record including assault and drug possession. What Hunter discovered next nearly broke his legendary self-control. Luke's full report arrived via encrypted email, and Hunter read it in his locked study while Sabrina played with Charlie in the living room, maintaining her motherly charade. Subject: Sabrina Douglas Allen. Comprehensive background report. "Mr. Allen, you need to sit down for this. Your wife isn't who you think she is. Real name, Sabrina Douglas. Born in Nevada. Married twice before you. Both husbands died under suspicious circumstances. First husband, Timothy Douglas, died in a hunting accident when she was 23. She inherited his $800,000 life insurance policy. Second husband, Marcus Woods, died in a car crash 2 years later. Another $1.2 million payout. She moved to your city 5 years before meeting you and created an entirely new identity. The marketing job, the college degree, even her medical history, all fabricated. More concerning, Dr. Kevin Houston recognized her because she brought another child to that same ER 3 years ago, a little girl with suspicious injuries. The child died 2 days later from complications. The case was never prosecuted due to lack of evidence, but Houston never forgot her face. Current situation: she's been living a double life for at least 8 months with Elliot Porter. Porter has connections to unsavory people, including individuals who specialize in making problems disappear permanently. Final note: I found evidence she's been slowly poisoning you with small doses of antifreeze in your coffee. The symptoms would mimic heart disease. Your life insurance policy is worth $3.5 million. I'm attaching all documentation. Call me immediately. Luke. Hunter's hand shook as he scrolled through bank records showing Sabrina's secret accounts, photographs of her with Elliot Porter, and medical records indicating the gradual buildup of toxins in his system, toxins that would eventually kill him and look like natural causes. The woman in his living room, the one Charlie called Mommy, was a calculating serial killer who'd murdered her previous husbands and was slowly working on him. Worse, she'd already started targeting Charlie, probably because a 4-year-old witness was becoming inconvenient. Hunter's phone buzzed with a text from Sabrina. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Kiss Charlie for me." Through his security cameras, he watched her leave 20 minutes later, designer purse in hand, completely unaware that her husband now knew everything. Hunter poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in his study, staring at surveillance photos of his wife kissing another man, a man who helped her plan murders. For most people, discovering such a betrayal would be devastating. For Hunter Allen, it was clarifying. He'd built his fortune by being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Competitors who tried to undercut his bids found their equipment mysteriously breaking down. Business partners who attempted to cheat him discovered their other ventures suddenly facing regulatory scrutiny. Workers who stole from his sites were blacklisted industry-wide within days. Hunter Allen didn't just win. He crushed those who opposed him so thoroughly they served as warnings to others. Sabrina had made 3 critical errors. First, she'd underestimated her target. Second, she'd hurt his child. Third, she'd assumed Hunter was just another mark to be manipulated and murdered. She was about to learn why that assumption would cost her everything. Hunter opened his laptop and began typing. By morning, he'd have a comprehensive plan that would destroy both Sabrina and Elliot Porter in ways they couldn't imagine. But first, he had a phone call to make. "Luke, it's Hunter. I need you to expand the operation. We're not just gathering information anymore. We're going to war." Chapter 3. The Setup. Hunter Allen had always believed in the principle of overwhelming force. When a competitor tried to steal his clients, he didn't just outbid them. He bought their suppliers, hired their best workers, and crushed their ability to operate. When dealing with a serial killer masquerading as his wife, the same philosophy applied. 3 weeks after discovering Sabrina's true nature, Hunter had assembled what he privately called his board of war. The meeting took place in the basement of his construction company's headquarters, a soundproof room originally designed for confidential client meetings. Luke Hammond sat across from Hunter, files spread across the table like battle plans. Beside him was Annie Garcia, a forensic accountant who specialized in untangling complex financial crimes. At the far end sat Johnny Hall, a former Marine who now ran security consulting for Hunter's more sensitive projects. Status report. Hunter said, his voice carrying the authority that had built an empire. Luke consulted his notes. "Sabrina and Elliot are escalating. We intercepted communications suggesting they're planning to accelerate your timeline. The poisoning was supposed to take months, but they're getting impatient. Meaning, they're discussing more direct action. Elliot mentioned a staged home invasion for this weekend while you're supposedly at the construction site in Millfield." Hunter nodded. He'd expected this. Sabrina knew he always worked Saturday mornings on major projects, and their home security system had convenient blind spots she'd probably mapped for Elliot. Annie Garcia opened her laptop. "I've traced Sabrina's financial network. She's got accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Panama. Total liquid assets around $4 million, all from her previous husband's life insurance policies. But here's the interesting part. Elliot Porter isn't just her lover. He's her business partner." Explain. "They've done this before with other couples. Elliot identifies wealthy, isolated targets. Sabrina gets close to them, marries them, and they execute the plan. They've been operating for at least 7 years. I found connections to at least 6 suspicious deaths across 3 states." Johnny Hall leaned forward. "What about the authorities?" "That's where it gets complicated," Luke interjected. "Elliot's brother is Detective Zachary Jackson with the state police. Family loyalty runs deep, and Zachary's been protecting Elliot for years. Any official investigation would tip them off." Hunter absorbed this information without visible reaction. He'd suspected the corruption went deeper than simple murder for insurance schemes. "What about the child who died at the hospital?" "Charlotte Fowler, age 6. Sabrina was dating the girl's father, Marcus Fowler. The child died from what appeared to be complications from a fall, but Dr. Houston suspected abuse. Before he could push for a formal investigation, the father died in a car accident and Sabrina disappeared. Let me guess, another life insurance payout. $2.3 million. Hunter stood and walked to the window overlooking his construction yard. Dozens of workers moved with purposeful efficiency, building something permanent and strong. It reminded him why he'd always succeeded where others failed. He thought in terms of foundations and long-term stability. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, turning back to his team. "We're not just going to stop them. We're going to destroy them so completely that it serves as a message to anyone else who might think Hunter Allen is an easy target." He moved to a whiteboard and began sketching. Phase 1. We let them think their plan is working. Sabrina believes she's been slowly poisoning me and that Elliot will stage a home invasion this weekend. Instead, we're going to give them exactly what they want, with modifications. Luke raised an eyebrow. "You want to let them try to kill you? I want them to think they've succeeded." "Annie, I need you to create a paper trail showing I've been experiencing heart problems. Doctor visits, prescriptions, the works. Make it look like the poisoning is working faster than expected." "What about Charlie?" Johnny asked. Hunter's expression hardened. "Charlie will be safely away. My sister Trinity McCarty is taking him to Disney World this weekend. As far as anyone knows, it's a surprise trip I arranged because I've been feeling guilty about working too much." "And Sabrina?" "Sabrina thinks she's attending her college roommate's wedding in Chicago this weekend. She'll have perfect alibis for when things go wrong for me at home." Annie looked confused. "I don't understand the end game." Hunter smiled, and for the first time since discovering his wife's true nature, it was genuine. "Elliot Porter is going to break into my house to stage my death. Instead, he's going to find himself in a very different situation. By Sunday morning, both Elliot and Detective Zachary Jackson will be facing choices that will destroy them." "What about Sabrina?" "Sabrina is going to learn that her new widow's inheritance isn't quite what she expected. In fact, she's going to find herself in a position where she'll beg me to take her back. And that's when she'll discover what I do to people who hurt my son." Luke leaned back in his chair. "Hunter, whatever you're planning, make sure you can live with it afterward." Hunter thought about Charlie's broken arm, about the toxins in his bloodstream, about the child who died because no one stopped Sabrina in time. "I can live with anything except letting them hurt more people. We start tomorrow." As his team filed out, Hunter remained in the basement, finalizing details that would ensure Elliot Porter's weekend home invasion became something far more memorable than murder. By the time he was finished planning, Hunter realized he was actually looking forward to Saturday night. Chapter 4. The Bait. Friday morning arrived with typical suburban normalcy. Hunter made breakfast while Sabrina fussed over Charlie's cast, playing the caring mother with Academy Award-worthy performance. Charlie, oblivious to the undercurrents, chattered excitedly about his upcoming trip with Aunt Trinity. "I still think it's excessive, letting him fly across the country just for a theme park," Sabrina said, buttering toast with movements a shade too precise. "He's been through trauma," Hunter replied, watching her through the reflection in the kitchen window. "A little distraction will help him heal." What Sabrina didn't know was that Trinity McCarty was already in town, staying at a hotel under an assumed name. Charlie would be safely away by noon, but his departure would look spontaneous to anyone watching. Hunter's phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Kevin Houston. "Lab results ready. Recommend immediate consultation." The text was part of the performance, but Sabrina's reaction was real, a flash of satisfaction quickly hidden behind concern. "Is everything okay? You seem tired lately. Probably just stress from the Millfield project. I'll see the doctor next week." Another text, this one from Luke, package delivered. The package was Elliot Porter's weekend assignment. Through carefully planted information, Elliot now believed Hunter would be alone Saturday night, working late at the construction site, and that the house's security system would be down for routine maintenance. What Elliot didn't know was that Hunter would be very much at home, waiting. "I need to run errands," Sabrina announced after breakfast. "Pick up my dress from the dry cleaner. Get a pedicure before the wedding." Hunter kissed her cheek, tasting lies. "Drive safely. I love you. Love you too." As Sabrina's Mercedes pulled out of the driveway, Hunter's real day began. He called Trinity, who arrived within minutes, to collect Charlie. The boy was thrilled to see his aunt and completely bought the story about a surprise vacation. "Take care of Daddy while I'm gone. Charlie told Sabrina when she returned from her errands that afternoon. "I will, sweetheart." The irony was so perfect Hunter almost laughed. That evening, as Sabrina packed for her fictional wedding, Hunter made his final preparations. Hidden cameras were positioned throughout the house. Johnny Hall was stationed in the neighbor's house. The Parson family was conveniently out of town, and their security system had mysteriously malfunctioned, allowing Johnny access. "Test the comms." Hunter spoke into his nearly invisible earpiece. Clear as day, Johnny's voice responded. "Elliot drove by twice in the last hour. He's definitely planning something. And Detective Jackson parked 3 blocks away in an unmarked car. He's running interference if anything goes wrong." Hunter smiled grimly. Both men thought they were hunting a lone victim. They had no idea they'd wandered into a predator's territory. At 8 p.m., Sabrina kissed him goodbye with the same lips that had probably kissed her previous husbands before their deaths. "I'll call when I land. Have fun at the wedding." The house felt different after she left. Not empty, but pregnant with possibility. Hunter changed into dark clothing and reviewed his preparations one final time. In the basement, Johnny Hall's military expertise had helped create what looked like a home gym, but was actually a specialized interrogation facility. Soundproof walls, restraints that appeared to be exercise equipment, and cameras positioned to capture everything. At 10 p.m., Hunter received the expected call from Sabrina. Airport noise in the background, perfectly staged. "Just boarding now. The flight's delayed, so I won't land until after midnight. Safe travels. Love you." At 11:47 p.m., motion sensors detected Elliot Porter approaching the house through the backyard. Hunter watched through hidden cameras as the younger man examined the security system, finding exactly the vulnerabilities he expected to find. Elliot was good. Hunter had to admit that. He moved through the darkened house like a professional, avoiding creaky floorboards and staying in the shadows. He'd obviously studied the layout extensively. What Elliot couldn't have known was that Hunter had studied him just as thoroughly. "He's in the kitchen," Johnny's voice whispered through the earpiece, moving toward the stairs. "Let him come to me." Hunter lay in his bed, breathing slowly and regularly, playing the part of a sleeping target. Through barely opened eyes, he watched Elliot Porter enter his bedroom, a syringe in his hand. Elliot moved with predatory confidence, approaching the bed where Hunter apparently slept deeply. The syringe was probably loaded with enough poison to kill a horse, Sabrina's new method for when patience ran out. Elliot raised the syringe. Hunter's hand shot out like a striking snake, crushing Elliot's wrist. The younger man's cry of pain was cut short by Hunter's other hand clamping over his mouth. "Hello, Elliot. We need to talk." Elliot's eyes went wide with shock and terror as Hunter's grip tightened. The syringe fell to the floor as Elliot realized his perfect victim had become his worst nightmare. "Not if you understand," Hunter whispered. Elliot nodded frantically. "Good, because we're going downstairs, and you're going to tell me everything about you and my wife. And Elliot, if you try to run, if you try to fight, if you even think about calling for help, I'll make sure you live just long enough to regret it." Chapter 5, The Confession. In the basement of Hunter Allen's house, Elliot Porter learned the difference between being a predator and being prey. Hunter had zip-tied Elliot's hands to a weight bench with restraints that looked like standard gym equipment, but were designed for much darker purposes. A few feet away, hidden cameras captured every word and expression. "Let's start simple," Hunter said, settling into a chair across from his captive. "How many people have you and Sabrina killed?" Elliot's face was swollen from Hunter's initial restraint, his broken wrist cradled awkwardly, but his eyes still held defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about." Hunter nodded to Johnny Hall, who stepped from the shadows holding Elliot's cell phone. "We intercepted your communications. We know about the insurance payouts, the previous husbands, the children who got in the way. You can't prove anything." "I don't need to prove anything in court, Elliot. This isn't about justice. It's about information." Hunter stood and walked to a tool rack along the basement wall. Construction work had familiarized him with implements designed to apply precisely controlled pressure to various materials. "You see, I learned something interesting about you. Your brother, Detective Zachary Jackson, has been covering your tracks for years. Family loyalty is admirable, but makes you both vulnerable. Elliot's confidence began to crack. What do you want? Everything. Names, dates, methods, bank accounts. How you target victims, how you eliminate witnesses, how long you've been operating. And if I don't tell you? Hunter selected a heavy-duty bolt cutter from the rack. Then I start removing pieces until you do. Beginning with fingers, moving to toes, then more essential parts. The color drained from Elliot's face. You're insane. No, Elliot. I'm practical. You and Sabrina hurt my son. You've been slowly poisoning me for months. You killed at least 6 other people, including a child. Insanity would be letting you live after this conversation. Hunter's matter-of-fact tone was more terrifying than any shouting. Elliot began to understand he wasn't dealing with a typical victim. Zachary will come looking for me. Your brother is sitting in his car 3 blocks away, waiting for your all-clear signal. But he's not going to get one. Hunter showed Elliot his own phone, displaying a text message ready to send. All done. Target eliminated. Heading home. 1 button press, and Zachary thinks you're safe at home. By the time he realizes something's wrong, this conversation will be over. Elliot stared at the message, realizing the completeness of his situation. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with Charlotte Fowler. For the next 2 hours, Elliot Porter confessed to a killing spree that spanned 7 years and 3 states. He detailed how he identified wealthy, isolated targets through gym memberships and social media. How Sabrina infiltrated their lives, playing the perfect girlfriend or wife. How they eliminated obstacles, previous wives, suspicious relatives, and children who witnessed too much. Charlotte Fowler had been killed because she'd seen Sabrina put something in her father's drink. Timothy Douglas had been shot during a stage hunting accident when he discovered Sabrina's previous marriage. Marcus Woods had been drugged and his car sent off a mountain road. The toxins in your coffee were just the beginning, Elliot explained, his voice hollow with resignation. Sabrina wanted it to look natural, but you were taking too long to die. This weekend was supposed to be a heart attack brought on by a home invasion gone wrong. What about Charlie? Elliot hesitated, then spoke quietly. Kids are problems. They see things, ask questions. Sabrina said he was getting suspicious about the fall from a tree. Hunter felt a rage, so pure it was almost meditative. The fall wasn't an accident. She pushed him. Not hard enough to kill him, just enough to make him afraid to tell you things. But when the doctor recognized her at the hospital, she knew Charlie would have to be dealt with eventually. Ow! Accidents happen to kids all the time. Drowning, falls, car crashes. We've done it before. Hunter pressed send on the text message to Detective Jackson, then set down Elliot's phone. Thank you for being so thorough. What happens now? Now you're going to call Sabrina and tell her there's been a complication. Hunter untied Elliot's good hand and handed him his phone. You're going to say the job went wrong, that I woke up and fought back, that you had to kill me messier than planned. Tell her she needs to come home immediately to help with cleanup before the police get involved. She'll never believe. She'll believe it because greed makes people stupid. Sabrina thinks she's about to inherit $3.5 million. She's not going to let a minor complication stop her. Elliot dialed with shaking fingers. Hunter listened as his wife received news of his apparent death with barely concealed excitement masked as shock and grief. I'll catch the first flight home, Sabrina said. Clean up everything. I'll be there by morning. After the call ended, Hunter looked at Elliot with something approaching pity. You know what's funny? You and Sabrina thought you were so smart, so careful, but you never considered that your victims might be smarter. What do you mean? Elliot, did you really think I'd make it this easy to rob and murder me? I've been 3 steps ahead of you since the day I found out what you were. Hunter walked to a cabinet and removed a small video camera. Every confession you just made is recorded. Every murder, every method, every victim. And in about 6 hours, when Sabrina walks into this house expecting to find my corpse, she's going to find something very different. Elliot's remaining defiance crumbled completely. Please. Please what? Please show mercy to serial killers who target children. Hunter checked his watch. Johnny's going to keep you company while I prepare for my wife's homecoming. Don't worry, Elliot. Your suffering is almost over. As Hunter climbed the basement stairs, Elliot Porter began to truly understand what it meant to be trapped by someone who played the game better than he did. Chapter 6. The Reckoning Begins. Saturday morning's dawn found Hunter Allen in his kitchen, brewing coffee with the same methodical precision he applied to everything. Upstairs, the bed remained unmade, stained with what appeared to be blood, but was actually theatrical makeup mixed with corn syrup. To anyone entering the house, it would look like a violent struggle had occurred. At 6:23 a.m., Sabrina's key turned in the front door. Hunter watched through hidden cameras as his wife entered their home, her designer luggage abandoned on the porch. She moved quickly through the house, calling Elliot's name in urgent whispers. "Elliot, where are you?" She found the bedroom first, gasping with apparent shock at the scene of carnage. Blood on the sheets, furniture overturned, her husband apparently dead and gone. Hunter had to admire her performance. The tears seemed genuine. "Oh God, Elliot, what happened here?" Sabrina pulled out her phone and dialed. Hunter heard Elliot's phone ringing in the basement, where the man himself sat zip-tied and contemplating his mortality. "Elliot, pick up. The police will be here soon. We need to get our story straight." She searched the house systematically, growing more agitated with each empty room. Finally, she discovered the basement door, which Hunter had left conspicuously ajar. "Elliot," as Sabrina descended into the basement, Hunter stepped out from his hiding place in the laundry room. "Hello, darling. Looking for someone." Sabrina spun around, her face cycling through shock, terror, and calculating fury in rapid succession. "Hunter? But the blood upstairs. Corn syrup and food coloring. Very effective, don't you think?" She looked past him to Elliot, who sat restrained and broken on the weight bench. "What have you done? What have I done?" Hunter's voice remained conversational, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Sabrina, I've learned some fascinating things about my wife. For instance, did you know your real name is Sabrina Douglas? Or that you've been married twice before to men who died under suspicious circumstances?" Sabrina's expression hardened into something ugly and familiar. "I don't know what you're talking about. I also learned about Charlotte Fowler, the 6-year-old girl who died because she witnessed you poisoning her father." Elliot was very informative about that particular murder. "Elliot, you idiot," she hissed. "Don't blame Elliot. He held out for almost 20 minutes before telling me everything, including how you've been slowly poisoning me for months and planning to murder our son because he was becoming inconvenient." For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Sabrina's face. "Where's Charlie?" "Safe, far away from his murdering mother." Sabrina straightened, and Hunter saw the real woman beneath the facade, cold, calculating, and utterly without remorse. "Fine. What do you want? Money? I have accounts. I want justice." "Justice?" Sabrina laughed bitterly. "From a man who built his fortune crushing anyone who got it his way? Don't pretend you're better than me. Hunter, you're just angry you got outplayed." "Actually, I wasn't outplayed. Watch." Hunter activated a wall-mounted monitor that began playing Elliot's recorded confession. Sabrina's face went pale as she heard her partner detailing their murder spree in graphic detail. This recording, along with all supporting evidence, is currently in the possession of FBI Special Agent Malia Thomas. Agent Thomas specializes in interstate murder conspiracies and has been very interested in your activities. "You're lying. I'm practical. Did you really think I'd handle this alone?" Elliot's confession implicates Detective Zachary Jackson in obstruction of justice and accessory to murder charges. Your brother-in-law is probably being arrested as we speak. As if summoned by his words, Hunter's phone rang. He answered on speaker. "Mr. Allen? This is Agent Thomas. We have Detective Jackson in custody. He's already started talking about his brother's activities in exchange for a reduced sentence." Sabrina stared at the phone in horror. "Zachary would never. Zachary has a wife and 2 young children," Agent Thomas continued. "When faced with life in prison versus cooperation, family loyalty became relative." Hunter ended the call and looked at his wife with something approaching satisfaction. "Elliot, Detective Jackson, and you are all going to prison. The evidence is overwhelming, And now that Jackson's cooperating, prosecutors won't need to rely solely on Elliot's confession. This is impossible. You can't have planned all this. Sabrina, I've been planning this since the day I found out what you were. Every move you've made, every decision Elliot and Jackson made, has been guided by information I wanted you to have. Hunter moved closer, and Sabrina instinctively backed away. You see, I learned something important about you and Elliot. You're not as smart as you think you are. Smart killers don't operate in the same geographical area for 7 years. Smart killers don't keep detailed records of their crimes. And smart killers certainly don't trust family members with corrupt cops to keep them safe. What do you want from me? Nothing. You're finished, Sabrina. But before the FBI takes you away, I want you to understand something. Hunter's voice became deadly quiet. You hurt my son. You tried to kill me. You murdered at least 6 people, including a child. There is nothing you could offer me that would make me show you mercy. Hunter, please. The only question now is whether you cooperate with authorities and spend life in prison, or whether you fight the charges and risk the death penalty. Sabrina looked around desperately, seeing no escape, no angle to work, no way to manipulate her way out of the trap that had closed around her. How long have you known? Since the night Charlie broke his arm. Dr. Houston remembered you from when Charlotte Fowler died. And you've been planning this since then? I've been planning your destruction since then. And Sabrina? This is just the beginning. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. The federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles had seen many high-profile cases, but the trial of Sabrina Douglas Allen drew particular attention. Serial killers who targeted their own families struck a primal fear in the American psyche, and the media circus was relentless. Hunter Allen sat in the front row of the gallery, watching his wife of 15 years face a jury of her peers. 6 months had passed since her arrest, and the federal prosecution had built an airtight case using Elliot's confession, Detective Jackson's cooperation, and the mountain of evidence Hunter's team had gathered. Sabrina looked different now. The designer clothes and perfect makeup had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit and institutional pallor. Her attorney, a public defender named Nicole Hill, was competent but outmatched by the federal prosecution team. Mr. Allen, the prosecutor called. Please tell the court about the night of June 15th, when you discovered the defendant's true plans. Hunter took the witness stand with calm confidence. Over 3 days of testimony, he methodically destroyed any remaining sympathy the jury might have had for Sabrina. He described finding Charlie with his broken arm, Dr. Houston's warning, the months of investigation that revealed his wife's true nature. When the prosecutor displayed enlarged photographs of the crime scenes from Sabrina's previous victims, several jurors visibly recoiled. The image of Charlotte Fowler's hospital bed was particularly damaging. And what did you do when you learned your wife had been poisoning you? The prosecutor asked. I protected my son and gathered evidence to ensure she could never hurt anyone else. Some might say you took the law into your own hands. I followed the law exactly. Every piece of evidence was gathered legally. Every recording was made on my own property with proper consent. I simply refused to be a victim. During cross-examination, Nicole Hill tried to paint Hunter as a vindictive husband who'd entrapped his wife. Isn't it true, Mr. Allen, that you deliberately manipulated events to frame my client? I manipulated events to reveal her true nature. There's a difference. You created an elaborate deception. I created an opportunity for your client to demonstrate her murderous intent. She chose to take it. But if you hadn't set this trap, Ms. Hill, your client had already killed at least 6 people before she met me. I didn't create a killer. I simply exposed one. The defense's case collapsed under the weight of evidence. Elliot Porter had pled guilty in exchange for life without parole and testified extensively about their murder partnership. Detective Zachary Jackson, facing corruption charges, provided detailed information about how he'd protected his brother's activities. But it was Sabrina herself who delivered the most damaging testimony. Against her attorney's advice, she took the stand on the trial's final day, apparently believing she could charm the jury as she'd charmed her previous victims. I never intended for anyone to get hurt, she began, her voice carefully modulated to project vulnerability. The prosecutor smiled. Ms. Allen, you stated you never intended anyone to get hurt. How do you explain this recorded conversation with Elliot Porter, dated 3 weeks before your arrest? The courtroom speakers played Sabrina's voice. The kid is becoming a problem. We need to deal with him before he tells Hunter something that makes him suspicious. I was referring to sending Charlie away to boarding school. In this conversation from 2 days later, kids have accidents all the time. Pool drownings, falls downstairs. It would look completely natural. Sabrina's facade cracked as the prosecutor played recording after recording of her discussing murder with cold calculation. Her attempts to explain away the evidence only made her appear more manipulative. Ms. Allen, in your expert opinion, how many children need to die to protect a murder conspiracy? That's not what I meant. How many husbands is it acceptable to poison for insurance money? You're twisting my words. Did you or did you not push your 4-year-old stepson, Charlie Allen, from a tree to intimidate him? Aye, he fell. Children fall. Yes or no, Ms. Allen? Did you push Charlie Allen? For 10 seconds, the courtroom was silent. Then Sabrina's mask slipped completely, revealing the cold predator beneath. He was going to ruin everything. The jury's collective intake of breath was audible. Sabrina realized her mistake immediately, but the damage was done. Hunter watched his wife's complete psychological collapse with satisfaction. This was what happened when predators faced actual consequences for their actions. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sabrina screamed as the verdict was read. Her composure finally shattered completely. This isn't fair. Hunter set me up. He manipulated everything. Judge Luke Hammond, coincidentally sharing a name with Hunter's private investigator, called for order. Ms. Allen, you will have an opportunity to address the court at sentencing. As bailiffs led Sabrina away, she caught Hunter's eye across the courtroom. The look she gave him was pure hatred, but also recognition. She finally understood that she'd never been hunting Hunter Allen. He'd been hunting her. After the trial, Hunter stood on the courthouse steps, surrounded by reporters. Mr. Allen, how does it feel to see your wife convicted? I feel justice has been served for Charlotte Fowler, Timothy Douglas, Marcus Woods, and all the other victims. What's next for you and your son? We're moving forward. Charlie's young enough to heal from this trauma, and we have excellent support systems. Do you harbor any resentment toward your wife? Hunter considered the question carefully. Resentment implies ongoing emotion towards someone who no longer matters. Sabrina Douglas Allen is a problem that's been solved. That evening, Hunter returned to his house, which he'd already put on the market. Too many bad memories, too much contamination from Sabrina's presence. He and Charlie would start fresh in a new city, far from the scene of their trauma. In his study, Hunter reviewed the final reports from his team. Elliot Porter would die in prison. Detective Jackson faced 10 years for corruption. Sabrina would likely receive the death penalty, though appeals would drag on for years. More importantly, the investigation had identified 3 other potential victims Sabrina and Elliot had been monitoring. Those people had been quietly warned and were now safely aware of the danger they'd unknowingly faced. Hunter Allen had built his fortune by being thorough, patient, and utterly ruthless with those who crossed him. In the case of his wife's betrayal, those qualities had served justice. Charlie bounded into the study, his cast finally removed, his arm fully healed. Daddy, when do we see the new house? Tomorrow, buddy. Are you excited? Yeah, we'll have a big tree to climb. Hunter smiled, remembering simpler times when his biggest worry was whether his son would scrape his knee playing outside. The biggest tree you've ever seen. But we'll build a proper tree house this time, with safety railings and everything. Can Aunt Trinity help? Of course. Family takes care of family. As Charlie ran off to play, Hunter reflected on the lessons of the past year. Trust was precious and easily shattered. Family, real family, was worth protecting at any cost. And some betrayals were so fundamental they could never be forgiven. But he'd learned something else. Sometimes the best revenge was simply ensuring that justice was served completely and publicly. Sabrina Douglas Allen had spent years believing she was smarter than everyone around her. She died believing she could manipulate and murder without consequences. She'd been wrong on both counts. Chapter 8. Retribution. The federal penitentiary in Victorville, California, was not designed for comfort. Sabrina Douglas Allen had spent 8 months in administrative segregation, awaiting the conclusion of her appeals process. Her death sentence had been upheld at every level, and her execution date was now 6 weeks away. Hunter Allen made the drive from his new home in San Diego on a gray Tuesday morning in February. The visiting room was sterile and heavily monitored, designed to prevent any contraband exchange or unauthorized communication. Sabrina looked older than her 42 years. Prison had stripped away the last vestiges of the beautiful, charming woman who'd once seduced wealthy men to their deaths. Her hair had grown gray, her skin pale and lined with stress. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, settling into the plastic chair across from him. "I wanted to see you one last time." To gloat. To close the book. Sabrina studied his face, looking for some crack in his composure, some angle she could still work. "Charlie doesn't visit. Charlie doesn't know you exist. As far as he's concerned, his mother died in a car accident 2 years ago. He's been in therapy, but he's healing. You erased me from his life. I protected him from you. There's a difference." They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of their shared history and mutual destruction heavy between them. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd never found out?" Sabrina asked. "No. You would have killed me and eventually killed Charlie. Then you would have moved on to your next victim. Maybe. Or maybe I would have been content with you." Hunter shook his head. "People like you don't get content, Sabrina. You get bored. And bored serial killers are dangerous serial killers. People like me? Predators. You enjoyed the hunt, the manipulation, the kill. The money was just a bonus." Sabrina's mask slipped slightly, revealing a flash of the cold intelligence beneath. "You enjoyed destroying me just as much." "Yes, I did." His honesty seemed to surprise her. "At least you're honest about it." "I've never pretended to be a good man, Sabrina. I'm just a better predator than you were." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to explain why you lost." Hunter leaned forward slightly. "You want to know the difference between us? You killed innocent people for money. I destroyed a serial killer to protect innocent people. You targeted the vulnerable. I targeted the guilty. You still destroyed a family. Your own family. You destroyed our family the moment you decided to hurt Charlie. Everything that followed was consequence." Sabrina's composure finally cracked. "I loved you. In my own way, I did love you." "No, you didn't. You loved what I represented. Security, wealth, respectability. You saw me as a problem to be solved, not a person to be loved. And now you're a problem that's been solved." The guard called time, and Hunter stood to leave. "Hunter," Sabrina called. "When they execute me, will you be there?" He considered the question seriously. "No, you don't deserve that much of my attention. What will you tell Charlie about me when he's older?" "The truth, that his biological mother was sick, and that sickness made her dangerous to people she should have protected. And about you, will you tell him what you're capable of?" Hunter paused at the door. "Charlie will learn that some people in this world hurt others for pleasure or profit. And he'll learn that those people can be stopped by someone willing to pay the necessary price. What if he becomes like you? Then God help anyone who threatens his family." Hunter left the prison without looking back. 3 hours later, he was home in time to pick Charlie up from school. "How was your day, buddy?" "Good. We're studying butterflies in science class. Did you know they start as caterpillars and completely change into something different?" "I didn't know that. It's called metamorphosis." "Metamorphosis," Charlie repeated carefully. "Can people do that too? Change into something completely different?" Hunter thought about his wife, who'd changed from apparent innocence to revealed monstrosity. About Elliot Porter, who'd transformed from predator to broken victim. About himself, who'd evolved from trusting husband to calculating hunter. Sometimes Charlie, but usually people just become more of what they already were inside. "What you inside, Daddy?" Hunter looked at his son, healthy, happy, safe, and completely unaware of the violence that had been necessary to preserve his innocence. "I'm someone who protects the people I love." 6 weeks later, Sabrina Douglas Allen was executed by lethal injection at 12:01 a.m. Hunter was not present. He was at home, reading Charlie a bedtime story about a brave knight who defeated a dragon to save his kingdom. Chapter 9. New Beginnings. 2 years after Sabrina's execution, Hunter Allen stood on the deck of his new home overlooking Mission Bay in San Diego. The house was smaller than their previous home, but felt larger somehow, uncontaminated by memories of betrayal and violence. Charlie, now 8 years old, was in the backyard with his new stepmother, Trinity McCarty Allen. Hunter had married his sister-in-law 18 months after Sabrina's death, as much for practical reasons as emotional ones. Charlie needed a mother figure, Trinity needed stability after her divorce, and Hunter needed someone he could trust absolutely. Their marriage was built on honesty rather than passion. Trinity knew everything about Sabrina, about the murders, about Hunter's role in bringing justice. She'd accepted it all because she understood the fundamental truth. Hunter Allen was dangerous to those who threatened his family, but utterly devoted to those who earned his loyalty. "Daddy, look," Charlie called, pointing to the elaborate treehouse Hunter had built in their massive oak tree. "Trinity taught me how to tie nautical knots." "Show me," Hunter called back, watching his son demonstrate his new skill with the patience and precision that seemed to be inherited Allen traits. The last 2 years had been about healing and rebuilding. Charlie had no memory of Sabrina pushing him from the tree. Trauma therapy had helped process those experiences without creating permanent damage. He remembered her as someone who'd gotten sick and died, a sanitized version of the truth that protected his childhood while laying groundwork for more complete honesty when he was older. Hunter's business had expanded significantly. The notoriety from the trial had initially hurt his reputation, but the revelation that he'd helped stop a serial killer network had ultimately enhanced his standing. People wanted to work with someone who could handle extreme situations with calculated precision. More importantly, he'd found peace with his own nature. Hunter Allen was not a good man in any conventional sense. He was ruthless, unforgiving, and capable of extraordinary violence when motivated. But he was also protective, loyal, and completely devoted to justice as he understood it. His phone buzzed with a text from Luke Hammond. "New client wants to meet." Husband suspects wife of infidelity. Sound familiar? Hunter smiled grimly. Luke had parlayed his role in the Sabrina case into a thriving private investigation business, specializing in domestic cases with potential criminal elements. He texted back, "Not interested in marriage counseling. This is different. Wife's previous husband died under suspicious circumstances. Client is scared." Hunter considered the request. Part of him wanted to stay retired from the hunting business to focus on being a father and husband. But another part, the part that had systematically destroyed Elliot Porter and Sabrina Douglas, stirred with interest. There were predators in the world who targeted innocent people. Serial killers who used marriage as a hunting strategy. Corrupt officials who protected murderers for money or family loyalty. And there were people like Hunter Allen who understood that sometimes the only way to stop monsters was to become something monstrous yourself. "Daddy, come up," Charlie called from the treehouse. Trinity made sandwiches. Hunter looked up at his son, healthy, happy, safe, and completely innocent of the violence that swirled around him. Charlie would grow up knowing he was protected, knowing his father would move heaven and earth to keep him safe. "Coming, buddy." Hunter climbed the ladder Trinity had insisted on installing, joining his family in their carefully constructed refuge above the dangers of the world. As they ate lunch in the treehouse, Charlie chattered about school, friends, and plans for the weekend. Trinity listened with the focused attention of someone who understood how precious these moments were. "Can we go to the beach tomorrow?" Charlie asked. "Of course," Hunter replied. "We'll make a whole day of it. Will you teach me to surf?" "When you're a little older. But I'll teach you to read the currents, to understand when water is safe and when it's dangerous." Charlie nodded seriously, absorbing the lesson that everything in life required careful assessment of risk and benefit. After lunch, as Trinity helped Charlie with homework, Hunter returned to his study and considered Luke's text. Somewhere in the city, a man was living with a woman who might be planning his death. That man was probably experiencing the same growing unease Hunter had felt in the weeks before discovering Sabrina's true nature. The difference was that this potential victim had reached out for help before it was too late. Hunter opened his laptop and typed a response to Luke, set up the meeting. I want to hear what he has to say. Because predators never stopped hunting. They found new victims, new schemes, new ways to exploit human trust and vulnerability. And sometimes the only way to stop them was to hunt them first. Hunter Allen had learned to live with his own nature. The calculating intelligence that could build business empires, the patience that could wait years for the perfect moment, the ruthlessness that could destroy enemies completely. Most importantly, he learned to use those traits in service of something larger than himself, the protection of innocent people from those who would hurt them. In his desk drawer, Hunter kept 2 photographs. One showed Charlie on his first day of school in San Diego, grinning with 8-year-old optimism. The other was a news clipping from Sabrina's execution, a reminder of what happened to people who threatened his family. Both photographs represented the same truth. Hunter Allen would do whatever was necessary to protect the people he loved. And in a world full of predators, that was exactly the kind of father Charlie Allen needed. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.